The story begins with King Danjong, who took the throne at 11 and struggled to keep it from his ambitious uncle, Prince Suyang. Prince Suyang secretly gathered followers, biding his time. After exiling Danjong, Prince Suyang sent a bowl of poison to him, and so, at just 17 years old, Danjong's life tragically ended. In the present day, a woman with long black hair reads a storybook to a small boy. The boy feels sorry for the lonely King Danjong, and the woman pats his head, agreeing that it must have been a hard life. The boy wonders if Danjong's life would have been better with his parents, and the psychological counselor, Guan Yun-seo, agrees it's likely. As the boy and his mother leave, he apologizes for taking her time, but Yun-seo assures him she enjoyed reading the story too. The mother thanks Yun-seo for helping her son's emotional growth, and Yun-seo advises her to continue reading with him at home. Alone now, Yun-seo gazes at the history book on her desk as it begins to shimmer with a magical light. Later at home, she kneels on the floor, looking through an old photo album and feeling grateful for the pictures. She reminisces about happy family photos from her mother's birthday and a day at the park. She stands and reaches up to a high bookshelf in her study. Her hand brushes against an ornate black box she's never seen before, which she pulls out with a soft clack. Opening it, she discovers a golden hairpin and an old, weathered scroll. She recalls a memory of her father reading to her as a child, telling her it was the story of their ancestors. An image of a grieving ancestor in mourning clothes makes her reflect on the pain of parents who leave their young children behind. A look of melancholy crosses Yun-seo's face. Unfurling the scroll reveals a vision of an ancestral woman and a golden ring. Thinking it's an heirloom, she slips it onto her finger. Whoosh! The ring suddenly erupts in a blinding flash of light. She feels herself being pulled toward a vision of a woman in a beautiful traditional gown. In a state of pure shock, she struggles to comprehend what just happened. A swirling vortex of magical blue light surrounds her. She awakens to a warm hand and the sight of a small child asking if she also had a bad dream about her mama. Confused and scared in strange clothes, she is surprised when the child she's holding gives her a comforting hug. As the child snuggles against her, a sudden realization begins to dawn on her. She looks down in horror at the traditional clothes she's wearing, a sleeping child beside her. Taking in the unfamiliar, traditional room, she desperately wonders where she is. She touches her face in panic, realizing it's not her own, and recognizes her clothes as a Nanny uniform from the Joseon dynasty. Her eyes fall to the golden ring on her finger as she frantically questions what is happening. She stares at the ring, her heart pounding as she realizes it must be the cause of her predicament. Remembering the vision, she wonders if Queen Hyundai somehow sent her back to the Joseon era. Taking charge of her new body, she demands to know about the palace's security just as a royal figure arrives outside, his attendant warning him that returning without permission is treason. The royal man outside silences his attendant, explaining that a celestial omen and a dream of the late Crown Princess Guan made him worry that something had happened to his son Hongwei. He realizes that the sleeping child inside must be his son. He bursts through the door and grabs her collar, aggressively demanding to know who she is. The child stirs, murmuring about the noise, and she silently panics, pleading for him to stay asleep. As the child, Hongwei, drifts back to sleep, the man notes with relief that he seems safe. The man addresses her as Guan Nan, demanding to know where the other maids are and why she is alone. She searches her new memories and recalls that Guan Yin, a distant relative of the late crown princess, became Prince Hongwei's nanny after his mother's death. She then remembers another maid named Miss Park giving Guan Nan some sweets while asking her to cover her night shift. In the memory, Guan Nan happily accepts a sweet, which Yun-seo now understands to be a key part of the official incident report. She realizes she must have possessed Guan Nan's body right after she ate the poisoned sweets, just as the man impatiently repeats his questions. Recognizing Hongwei as Danjong's childhood name, she deduces the man is his father, Crown Prince Yihyang, who expresses relief that his son is safe from a spreading illness. Her mind flashes to her history lessons, recalling that Yihyang will become King Munjong, and she muses on his handsome appearance before another thought cuts her off. Her heart pounds as she stares at the ring on her finger, realizing it might be her only way home. Thump, thump, thump. She presses her forehead to the floor, praying with all her might to her parents, God, anyone, to return her to her own time. Suddenly, a firm hand grasps her own. Crown Prince Yihyang holds her hand, his gaze fixed on the ring as he demands to know where she got it. His attendant urges the crown prince to return, but he ignores the plea, his grip firm on her arm. Turning to leave, He entrusts his son Hongwi to her care until his return tomorrow evening. With a final stern look, he promises to question her about the ring upon his return. Under the full moon, a white streak flashes across the night sky, marking a new chapter. Later, as the crown prince works at his desk, a voice calls out to him. He recalls a vision of a weeping royal woman, begging him to protect Hongwi. The memory leaves him silent and somber. His thoughts return to the maid, her defiant grip, and the mysterious ring on her finger. The next morning, a bright-eyed young Hongwi babbles happily at his father. The crown prince listens as his son continues to speak, his words a childish song. Outside, maids whisper about Yunseo's tears as she grieves, deciding to leave her alone. A fellow maid tells her to pull herself together, asking if she's still crying because Lady Park scolded her. She quietly dabs her eyes with a pink handkerchief, consumed by sorrow. Chief Court Lady Park of the Crown Prince's palace appears, her expression furious. Lady Park relays the Crown Prince's anger over the lack of security, shocking Yunseo with the question of whether he ordered her to be punished. Yunseo sits in stunned silence, overwhelmed by the perilous situation. I really am the problem, she thinks as Lady Park yells, asking if she's sick. She resolves to be careful until His Highness returns, knowing a low profile won't protect her. A flash of the prince ordering her torture fills her with dread. She's now an enemy of the royal family. Despairing, she laments how a single ring has destroyed her life as a successful counselor. She sighs, wishing she could disappear, as little Hongwi watches her from behind. As Hongwi starts to wander off, she calls out in panic, accidentally using her own host's name, Gaia. She quickly reassures the young heir she isn't going anywhere, mortified by her slip-up. A new scene begins, as she and another maid walk with Hongwi through the palace grounds. She remembers Madame Li praising the nanny for raising a child who snuggles so comfortably. Realizing the boy has separation anxiety from his real nanny, she understands another of Gaia's memories has surfaced. As a counselor, she can't help but analyze the boy's features, noting his rapidly developing frontal lobe. Her fellow maid notices her strange expression and asks if she's okay, but she dismisses the concern. The maid promises to cheer her up later, as Yunseo realizes that small triggers are unlocking Kwangai's memories. Holding Hongwi, she feels a sense of relief. At least she doesn't have to fake being someone else. She stands before a line of maids, playfully asking Hongwi if he's having a good time. She reflects that she only came to the koi pond for Hongwi, but ended up running into two others. She observes two young, noble ladies who have come to visit from their respective palaces. She recalls that the two ladies are betrothed to the sons of Prince Suyang and a royal concubine. Watching one of the young ladies, she notices the smile is fake, a mere lifting of her lips. Hongwei must be an eyesore to her, she thinks, as the boy splashes happily in the water. She remembers that Hongwei was once the cherished first grandchild before his affection was stolen away. Haya Hongwei splashes water excitedly, and seeing his spirit, she decides to just watch for now. A court lady arrives, offering rice cakes and mugwort rolls to the young ladies. To her horror, her new body's gluttonous instinct reacts instantly and excitedly to the rice cakes. As her body moves on its own, Hongwei suddenly starts crying for Gaia to give him a hug. Wah! Amid the commotion, a hand strikes the crying child, and she rushes to scoop him up, realizing what just happened. Comforting the sobbing boy, she has a sudden, dawning realization. Her gaze falls upon the young heir of the bright Grace Palace, who turns away silently. She stands and sharply confronts the boy, asking if he just dared to strike the royal heir. The other maid erupts in fury, threatening her for slandering her lady, but Yunseo stands her ground. I serve the future king, she declares, reminding them all that a maid's rank is tied to her master. The maid shrieks, scandalized that she would raise her voice to the beloved young heir. Yunseo sharply orders them to stop their disgraceful behavior in front of the young heirs. Chief Court Lady Park storms in, threatening to send them both to the inspectorate if they don't end their squabble immediately. The young heir of the bright Grace Palace apologizes for swinging her arm and accidentally grazing Hongwei's head. Holding Hongwei close, she apologizes to the little one directly. She then turns to Yunseo and asks for her name. Bowing respectfully, Yunseo introduces herself as Quan Gaia, attendant to the royal heir. As the group of maids walks away, one of them stammers a reply. A maid with a red ribbon in her hair glances back with a sharp, intrigued expression. Yunseo watches her go, contemplating the maid who just left. Later, Chief Court Lady Park remarks that she thought Yoon-seo was just quick on her feet, but she's also quick with her words. Lady Park tells Kwon-ga that she'll have to see her in a new light from now on, prompting a nervous laugh. As Lady Park offers her more food, Yoon-seo declines, claiming to be full, while privately thinking the natural ingredients taste dull. The mood shifts as Yoon-seo reveals that a maid handed her poisoned tea cakes yesterday, a clear attempt to harm the young heir's nanny. Lady Park stares in shock, while Yoon-seo calmly recounts the incident. She asks if the poison was meant for the young master, and Yoon-seo confirms that it was. In a flashback, she remembers Miss Park giving her the sweets, narrating that she doesn't know who ordered the poisoning. The innocent face of young Hongwi flashes by, highlighting the danger he is in. Yoon-seo's mind races as she considers the need to check the guards and question the other two maids assigned to his quarters. Lady Park asks if she's unwell from the poison, but Yoon-seo reassures her that it was just a brief stomachache. Relieved, Lady Park tells her to rest while she heads to the pavilion. A warm memory surfaces of a younger Gaia playing happily with baby Hongwi. Another memory shows a smiling woman in green holding a joyful, giggling baby Hongwi. Determined, Yoon-seo realizes her first step must be to gain allies to uncover the conspiracy. She needs people who can investigate the powerful families beyond the palace walls. Tossing in her sleep, she wonders how to find such people and thinks that perhaps Lady Park might know what to do. A new resolve fills her as she sits up in bed, her long hair flowing behind her. Her expression is firm, her purpose now clear. Watching the sleeping child, she vows to protect the young heir. The next day, she and the other maids wait outside the pavilion. Standing among them, she has a calm and confident demeanor. Inside, she helps prepare Hongwi for the day's events. She nervously muses about meeting the legendary King Sejong, creator of the Korean alphabet. Turning to the boy, she asks what his grandfather, His Majesty, is like. Another maid instantly gasps, demanding to know how she dares ask such a question. Hongwei lets out an indignant shout. The maid explains that a mere servant questioning the Grand Royal Father is an insult, making Yoon-seo realize the boy is as sharp as a blade. She laughs, charmed by his adorable fierceness, and apologizes to the young master. Thump, the maids rush to greet a noble consort who has just arrived, Hai Bin of the Yang clan. Lady Yang, mistress of the blossoming Grace Hall, is introduced. Hongwi has been under her care since his mother passed. Lady Yang calls for the young master to greet their majesties, but he shakes his head, wanting to stay with Kwon-ga. As Hongwi clings to her, another maid explains that he may feel distant from Lady Yang because she has been so busy lately. Lady Yang smiles, explaining she was occupied preparing for their majesties' return to the palace. She gently extends a hand, promising to be by his side again after their greetings are finished. Hugging Yoon-seo tightly, Hongwi declares that he wants to go with Kwon-ga. Sighing at the child's stubbornness, Lady Yang instructs Kwon-ga to hold him and follow close behind. Carrying Hongwi, Yoon-seo follows Lady Yang and her attendant. They encounter another royal figure, Shin Bin of the Kim clan, King Sejong's most favored consort, whose sons would later side with the man who killed Hongwi. The consorts greet the royal heir as the others bow in respect. Hongwei flinches in her arms, and she thinks his attachment to her might be because she is related to his late mother. Lady Yang explains that since the queen was away, she has been overseeing the court, which may be why Hongwi seems unaccustomed to her. Lady Yang laments that if Lady Shinbin were literate, they could share duties, which would allow her to watch over the young master herself, earning an irritated glance. As Lady Yang passes, Yoon-seo clutches a nervous Hongwi. Lady Shinbin announces they must go, as the queen is waiting. She reflects on the crucial period of a child's personality development as Hongwi sleeps. Pat, holding him, she realizes this isn't the first time he's been so distressed. This explains why he grows up unable to eat in Prince Soo-young's presence. She questions how Lady Yi-ying could so negligently leave her own child unattended. A happy shout echoes as Hongwi runs out, calling for his father. The crown prince sweeps his son into a joyful embrace, asking if he's been well. He explains he arrived late last night, and Hongwi happily responds to his father. Lady Yang smiles, remarking on how bright the young heir is. Lady Yang claims Hongwi spent all of yesterday waiting for His Highness to arrive. Yoon-seo scoffs internally, knowing Hongwi actually spent the day fishing and drawing with her. The crown prince turns to her, thanking maid Kwon-ga, for looking after his son. She bows deeply, honored by His Highness's words. He tells her to forget the thanks and simply serve the heir even better. The royal entourage gathers in the grand courtyard. Yunseo stands apart, enduring the stares and whispers of the other maids. Two maids gossip about the prince's attention towards a mere maid. The crown prince smiles at his babbling son, murmuring, "Very well." Stepping forward, Yunseo boldly requests a private audience. The crown prince looks over, his expression turning serious at her request. An attendant urges the prince along, and he walks away with Hongwi. She watches him go, realizing he has granted her request for an audience. Ha! In a chibi outburst, she furiously calls him a worthless father. Inside the hall, the queen invites her grandson heir to come to her. The queen smiles warmly, her arms open in a welcoming gesture. Hongwi formally greets his grandparents, wishing them well. The king and queen look at each other, confused by his formal distance. Lady Young explains his shyness, attributing it to time spent with Lady Kwan. The queen warmly promises to play with her lonely grandson from now on. Yunseo wonders what's causing his sudden change in behavior. Her eyes land on a stern-faced boy in a black hat, Prince Dowan. She understands. Hongwi is avoiding the queen because Prince Dowan is there. She then identifies the woman beside him as Grand Prince Suyang's wife, Lady Yun. Flinch, she wonders if Hongwi has been tormented by them as he hides behind her. Pat! She leans down to reassure the trembling boy that she is right there. Hongwi looks up at her, finding courage in her presence. He points directly at Prince Dowan and declares, "He hit me." He points to his head and tearfully repeats that he was hit right there. Lady Yun laughs, dismissing his claim as a bad dream and defending her son, Hyungdong. The queen agrees, telling Hongwi it's impossible that Hyungdong would hit him. Why? Hongwi wails that he was hit at the pond, stunning the entire court into silence. Lady Yun continues to deny the accusation, but Yunseo comforts the crying child. The queen turns to Consort Hai, asking if she witnessed Prince Dowan strike the heir. Lady Yang shifts the question to Yunseo, who confirms with a quiet yes. As she begins to recount the events at the pond, Lady Yun erupts, accusing her of slander. Lady Yun pleads her innocence, calling the accusation a baseless lie. Yunseo holds the frightened child, arguing that he is too young to invent such a lie. She continues her testimony, stating that attendants saw His Highness crying after the encounter. The king listens intently, stroking his beard as he considers the serious accusation. In a chibi moment, Yunseo internally fangirls over meeting King Sejong the Great. She argues that fabricating a lie requires advanced cognitive ability, which the young heir does not yet possess. The king muses on her logic, while Lady Yun angrily whispers to her son that the king's focus is misplaced. Lady Young volunteers to investigate her own subordinates and report back to His Majesty. Lady Yang turns with a stern, determined gaze. Lady Shinbin adds that if there were witnesses, as Lady Kwan claims, their testimony will surely emerge. Holding Hongwi, Yunseo presses the point, questioning if the other young royals shouldn't show proper courtesy to the heir. Thump! The entire court prostrates themselves as Lady Yun accepts blame for her foolishness, fearing criticism of the royal family. Lady Yun tearfully apologizes to the king and queen. As his mother fumes beside the king, Prince Dowan asks his grandparents for forgiveness. Yunseo calmly holds the young heir, observing the unfolding drama. The queen rushes to embrace Hongwi, comforting her little one over his pain. She pats his back reassuringly, telling him, there. Kneeling before the queen, Yunseo hears her explain that Hyungdong must have just wanted to play. She reflects that this small difference will cost the child his life, but then has a new thought. Holding Hongwi, the queen fiercely declares that no one would dare disrespect him. Prince Dowan orders that the matron and court ladies who attended him be flogged for failing to assist him in insulting the heir. His attendants accept the command, and the king adds that the same goes for consort Shin, who looks annoyed. The king orders Prince Damyang to show the heir respect, and repeats the command to flog his attendants. The queen holds Hongwi, her expression weary after the ordeal. Later, the queen praises Yunseo for tending to Hongwi's wounded heart. She tells Yunseo to continue her duties, and to fetch court matron Choi. The queen's order rings out. Reward court Lady Kwan with 20 bolts of silk. Lady Yang trembles with barely concealed rage. Lady Shinbin watches the proceedings with a subtle, knowing smile. The crown prince waits in his quarters, recalling he was supposed to summon her tomorrow. A woman with braided hair, who appears to be Yoon-seo, calmly asks what the meaning of this is. She wonders aloud why she is there, seeking to understand the situation. She repeats her question about the unexpected summons, her expression calm but questioning. After lunch, Yoon-seo narrates that she was returning to her quarters after finishing her shift. A fellow court lady approaches her with a bright smile. Thump. Lady suddenly grabs a shocked Yoon-seo. Dragged away by court ladies, she demands to be released, realizing she's been abducted. She finds herself being bathed by attendants, utterly bewildered by the situation. Lady Shinbin arrives, complimenting Yoon-seo's clear skin and lovely appearance. Still in the bath, Yoon-seo asks Her Highness what this is all about. Lady Shinbin asks an attendant for a court lady's uniform she used to wear. Panicked, Yoon-seo realizes the consort plans to send her to King Sejong and cries out in protest. Lady Shinbin watches the scene with a neutral, unreadable expression. An attendant explains to Yoon-seo that the king barely embraced the two new consorts he took last year. A eunuch waits with a lantern as Yoon-seo stands anxiously. In his study, the crown prince thinks that everything has been arranged with court matron Yum. He anticipates that Yoon-seo will be brought to attend him tonight. Yoon-seo considers the possibility of becoming the crown princess consort. She imagines holding the golden turtle, a symbol of the royal seal. She thinks possessing the seal would protect Consort Hai and her sons from execution. A memory of political turmoil surfaces, explaining the power a queen dowager holds. Lady Shinbin reflects on such incredible foresight, deeming it necessary for palace survival. The crown prince states that an attendant told him Lady Hae-ryung gave Yoon-seo a ring. Covering his nose, he complains about the overwhelming scent of musk, reprimanding her for being sent in like this. An ornate mother-of-pearl box is displayed against a golden floral background. A man's hands pass the precious family heirloom box to a woman. Kneeling, Yoon-seo urgently asks Her Highness when Jin-sung will shine again. The crown prince reacts with confusion as she connects the stars wavering to his recent visit with the grandson heir. He reveals her question is related to a strange event he experienced, piquing her curiosity. The prince thinks of the ring and the elegy hidden inside the peony box. Thump, he dismisses her story as nonsense, but she reveals the crown princess consort appeared in her dream. She explains the consort warned her of danger and begged her to protect them, presenting the ring as proof of her prophetic dream. Wham! The prince erupts in anger, accusing her of using the deceased consort's name to gain favor. Bowing low, she acknowledges that her words are difficult to believe. She offers to show him something, letting him decide her fate after he sees it. She presents a piece of paper, and the prince stammers in utter shock at its contents. He holds the note as she asks if he will now believe the crown princess consort gave her the ring. The Hunminjeongeum teaches that a nation's language should be easy for its people to learn and use in their daily lives. But because the spoken Korean language is different from Chinese, some Koreans have had difficulty learning Chinese characters. Consequently, they haven't been able to express themselves in writing. I have been concerned about this, so I have invented 28 new letters. My wish is that everyone may easily learn and use these new letters for their convenience. She recalls confirming with the court matron that the new writing system, Hangul, has not yet been announced. She tells him it is the secret text he and the king are creating and offers to write more to prove her knowledge. The prince sweats, realizing this is a secret known only to a select few to prevent political opposition. He grips the paper, wondering how she could write the unfinished letters so fluently. Pacing with the note, he questions if her claim is truly possible. He asks what vision the consort showed her, and she replies it was him, bundled up even when alone. Bash. He explodes with rage at her intimate knowledge, shouting, "How dare you?" Unfazed, she reminds him of the bloody history of royal brothers and sons from the previous king's reign. Enough, he yells, turning his back to her in frustration. Yoon-seo waits patiently as he struggles with her words. He reflects on the nation's blood-soaked past and the brilliant culture they have just begun to build. As he worries their achievements will vanish, Yoon-seo recalls the day she made a fateful decision. She remembers her resolve to use her knowledge of the future to change history. Bowing once more, she gives him one final piece of advice. The grandson heir must reside in the Eastern Palace. The prince immediately worries about noble consort Yang being a threat, but then realizes that's not her point. Yoon-seo explains that Replacing Hongwei with one concubine will make all the others jealous and resentful. She warns that alienated people grow to resent the object of favor, even if they've done nothing wrong. This resentment, she concludes, will ultimately turn into animosity toward the young heir himself. The prince considers her logic, thoughtfully asking her to tell him more. He listens with a grave and intense expression, absorbing her political insights. She explains that his noble upbringing prevents him from understanding the cruelty of ambition. She warns that an overly idealistic ruler allows the ambitious to sacrifice the common people. A memory surfaces of his parents lovingly holding him as an infant. He recalls growing up in a rare environment, shielded from political intrigue. As a young boy, he received solid backing, reinforcing his noble and idealistic worldview. He begins to argue that she is wrong, citing the teachings of the sages. She cuts him off, insisting a ruler's path must be different from an ordinary man's. A vision of the smiling, innocent Hongwei flashes before them. She warns that failure to be pragmatic leads to a burning palace and the destruction of the state. Visibly distressed, the prince agrees to bring Hongwei to her tomorrow, but admits he is curious about one thing. He asks if she will now become the target of the jealousy previously aimed at Lady Yang. She laughs it off, waving her hand dismissively while wondering what he could possibly mean. She explains she's just a maid from a common family and will be fine if she avoids trouble. In a sudden shift, she playfully scolds him for being overdressed, warning he'll get boils. He sighs in defeat, agreeing to take off the ceremonial robe but insisting she must do him for him. Panicked, she lunges forward, deciding against calling a eunuch as she prepares to help him disrobe. Bowing low, Yunseo humbly asks for guidance. The crown prince instructs her how to release his robes. As she starts to speak, he asks her what is wrong. Flustered, she worries about untying the wrong part. He dismisses her, and she dashes away, shouting her goodbyes. The crown prince watches her leave, a thoughtful expression on his face. Running frantically, she realizes how close she came to a disaster. She blushes, lamenting how unnecessarily handsome he is. A voice calls out, belonging to Chief Eunuch Yom Jachi. Annoyed, she realizes she didn't receive the imperial favor. The eunuch smirks, asking if the prince said anything about the ring. He waits silently, his lantern illuminating the night. She recalls that Eunuch Yom had confirmed her story about the ring. Walking with him, she asks why they sent her and not someone prettier. He shares a story about a fire on the day the crown prince was born. He explains that when people fear a sign, they act as if it will come true. Because of this, he reveals, others have kept their distance from the prince. He exclaims that this is why he needs her, someone who will see past appearances. Leaning in, he tells her they need her kind of devotion. She agrees on 2 conditions, free access and that she will not become a concubine. She resolves to focus on her goals, not frivolous emotions. The eunuch remarks that the palace draws people to power like moths to a flame. Later, another court lady informs her that Hongwei will be moved to the Eastern Palace. Yunseo questions the move, learning the concubines are there, and one has a terrible temper. The court lady worries. What will happen if that concubine learns Yunseo was there? Yunseo immediately requests to stay in the Eastern Palace as well. The woman angrily scolds her for not understanding that she is now attracting dangerous attention. She realizes with a sinking feeling that a past warning from Yihyang was correct. By protecting Hongwei, she will become a target for all his enemies. The woman offers a solution. Stay in an empty room in Eunuch Yom's quarters. Grateful Yunseo then asks for one more favor. She asks to house a man and 5 or 6 workers in the rear rooms, sparking curiosity. She smiles confidently, revealing her plan to make an item that will earn them a lot of money.